Okay, so let's get rolling here. Thanks everybody for joining us today. This is what we're calling the Tab Value Series, and it is an effort to make sure that we're including all our tab board members. We've got about 20 here in Columbia, and for those of you who might be a visitor on here, a tab board is a group of business owners. It's a peer advisory board. We get together once a month, work on ideas, opportunities, challenges, and help each other grow our businesses. So we've got a few people on here that aren't tab board members. We've got a couple of financial advisors I know that I have invited from my North Star side of my business. And we've got a couple of people who are actually looking at joining tab and want to hear more about it. But I can't think of a better way to bring value to you than bring Bill McCrary. Many of you know Bill. Bill is very well known around this area, the Midlands of South Carolina. He is a sales trainer and CEO of Sandler Sales in South Carolina. And for years I'd heard his name. And in the last couple of months, well, the last year, I had the chance to meet Bill, and I found out why everybody's talking about him. He's always got great ideas when times are good and when times are bad. And one of the things about what we offer our consumers, whether it's a product, whether it's a service, nobody wants to buy anything when times are good. So they definitely don't want to buy things when times are bad, but everybody is always looking for value. So what we want to do at Tab, and we've teamed up with Bill today to bring value, to bring you some good ideas, to bring you some philosophical some philosophy to kind of wrap around COVID-19 and give you that little bit of edge you need to take your business to the next level. So we're going to be on here for an hour today, and we'll have you out of here by 10:30. And at this point, Bill, we're so thankful to have you today. I appreciate you taking out time, offering your expertise, sharing it with us, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Bill. And I plan on this being somewhat interactive today, and I'd like to go through some basic navigation that we in fact do endorse Zoom, which I've been using since 2014. And let's walk through some basic navigation just in case you'd want to participate in some way. First of all, you have a control bar at the bottom of your screen, and this is where you'll find your mute, unmute function. If you will, just stay muted until you're ready to speak. Once again, if it's got the red hash on it, you are muted. Next to that, of course, is your video. I hope you will join us. It's a lot less fun speaking to a black screen, so please try to join us if you would. And of course, there's a chat feature. Many of you know each other. If you'll right-click, you'll see some asterisks on these individual pictures. You can right-click, and you can chat with any of your buddies, or generally, you can see where I've sent you a chat. Okay, but in these days of technology, good idea to be comfortable and know the basic navigation. You can also right-click on your name and put your name and company in there. Right-click on your name on your picture. And if you like to put your name and company for any Zoom call you ever do, you can certainly do that. Okay. Crazy times. Crazy times right now. No correlation between toilet paper and COVID, right? No GI issues whatsoever. How do you explain something like this, right? This is not a rational event. Not a rational event. So the first things we got to do is put things in perspective. Put things in perspective. Way to go, Jeff Griffin. You got that all figured out, don't you? Somebody tell me, what do these dates have in common? What do these dates have in common? Or better yet, how many of you employ millennials? People maybe younger than 30. Odds are they've never witnessed any of these events, where in each of these events, the stock market corrected by approximately 20% or more. I mean, this was Pearl Harbor. This was the gas wars. This was Black Monday. This was the tech bubble. September 11, planes crashed into the World Trade Center towers. The Great Real Estate Depression. And of course, today. But your biggest challenge is that a lot of people haven't seen this. They don't know how to react. They don't know how to think, right? So you got to put things in perspective and understand that you and your people will get back what they give off, right? Our heads are affected by this. Your head's affected by this. Every client I've got was consumed with how do we get money? How do we deal with COVID? Not the business, but ancillary issues, which were taxing, uncertainty. So it's affecting you. Furthermore, it's affecting your salespeople, right? Those who go after new business. Isn't it kind of sick that in the business of sales, we're talking to a litany of people in order to find one that will say yes to us in a normal environment, in a normal economy? Well, think about what's true today. In fact, what are a few current beliefs of your people? You know, you may understand that we all have self-talk. We all have self-talk, right? And if right now you're saying, no, I don't, guess what? You're talking to yourself. Now, do you think that self-talk is primarily positive or negative? I mean, typically we're hard on ourselves. We're so hard on ourselves. If our friends said things to us like we're thinking and saying to ourselves, they wouldn't be our friends. But it's estimated that 70 to 90% of our thoughts are negative. Well, how about today? How about today, right? What effect is this having on you? What are you giving off? In fact, what do you think some of the thoughts are, the current beliefs of your people? Current beliefs of your people. What do you think? Jeff Griffin, what do you think is a belief of one of your people? What do you think they're thinking right now? I mean, they're not saying it to you, but what do you think they could be thinking? What's an example?
I think our guys are worried about where the next job's coming from.
Oh, you bet. Yeah. You think anybody is thinking a thought like people aren't buying? Or they certainly don't want to see me. Think they're thinking something like that, Jeff? Now, here's the deal. If you're thinking that, listen, there's one of you, and if you've got 30 employees, there's 30 of them. They know more about you than you know about them, and they're watching you. And you get back what you give off. They get back what they give off. And let's take this thought, Jeff, let's take this thought and apply it to something called belief wheel. Let's suppose our belief, Jeff, is that people aren't buying, right? Now, if this is our belief system, as we pick up the phone or make judgments about making that call, our judgments are, won't do any good to make the call because people aren't buying. If those are their judgments, what do you think their actions look like? Half-hearted? Maybe they don't make the call. Or if they do, they're less than effective. And what do you think the results look like? Maybe there won't be any results. And if we're not careful, Jeff, it just became a self-fulfilling prophecy where they turn to someone else in the office and say, told you, right? And it's just a belief. It doesn't mean it's true. You know, my son asked me this week, he said, Dad, is this as bad as it seems? And my answer was, it depends, right? If you've got a secure job, if you work for a state agency, and it's unlikely that you'll be laid off, you're okay. It feels like a vacation. However, if you own a bar in 5 Points and you're paying a lease, this is catastrophic. So it depends. But it's been good for a lot of people. I'm stunned at how this is affecting different people differently. But we can't let our beliefs affect our actions. But understand that the things you do and say, what they see of you, you're the business of physical manifestation of you, right? What you're thinking, the way you look. So what is an appropriate belief? What is an appropriate belief? Hey, Trip Chavis, what do you think? What's an appropriate belief we could have today? What do you think? Any thoughts there on an appropriate belief?
An appropriate belief to me would be in crisis comes opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Trip, one of the things we suggested is that clients call old customers. And what's happened to Jeff is that people have cut back on service levels. And just touching base with old customers, they've closed business. because, Jeff, they're annoyed at their current account. Their service guy isn't responding like he should. By the way, where do you think his head is? Trip A+ on that. And how about this one? This too shall pass, right? And let's see, this has happened in how many times? You know, if we ran the interval of years between all of these, we'd find that, I don't know, every decade, something's going to happen. Sometimes it's because of legislation. Sometimes it's because of war. Sometimes it's because of COVID. But this too shall pass. This too shall pass. So insight number 3, I'm going to share 5 with you today. Insight number 3 is don't confuse activity with progress. Don't confuse activity with progress. I saw this panel the other day. I replicated it. I hope you can read it, but it speaks volumes. We could do an hour on this graphic. It states some findings, true or not. I suspect they're somewhat accurate, that people check their phones 150 times per day. I did the math on that. That's every 9.6 minutes. I believe it. We finally went to a restaurant the other night. There's a family of 4 sitting at their table. Everybody's on their phone. But the point is that they're distracted, and that phone is an interruption. Show of hands for all of you that have a ding when you get a text or an email. Show of hands. Why could that be a problem? What do you think? See, here's the challenge, is that it takes 25 minutes to re-engage on something strategic and important after being interrupted. I mean, how many of you have noticed you got to get in the flow when you're planning, when you're thinking, when you're thinking about a coaching situation, when you're thinking about a corrective situation with an employee, it requires concentration and thought. And every time you allow that to be interrupted, it takes 25 minutes to get your game face back on, right? And let's see, if that's happening every 9.6 minutes, you probably won't. You probably won't. So you remember Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He talked about those things, reactive versus proactive. Reactive is the text. It's the email, right? It's the ring on that phone. It's the ding, right? Each time these things happen, you're 25 minutes out of the queue, which is proactive, which means that maybe we cut that off so that we can think and plan and coach and mentor and maybe give off the right stuff because we're finally in control. I mean, this is letting the world control us. And if we're not careful, it certainly will every 9.6 minutes. Make sense? So I recommend a rhythm. I've had a rhythm for more than 20 years, and this is Bill's rhythm. By 6 o'clock, coffee, Wall Street Journal, in this order, daily devotional. Now here's my caveat, this is Bill's rhythm. Doesn't have to be your rhythm, but coffee, Wall Street Journal, daily devotional. Review the previous day. What worked? What didn't work? What next? What's the next step? And then and only then do I begin to plan the day. Then and only then do I begin to plan the day. And email is last. Hey, John Harris, you have audio? Why would I make email last on the list? Any thoughts there? Let me get you unmuted there, John.
Okay.
There we go. What do you think? Any thoughts on why email would be last?
It'll consume your thoughts.
Oh my gosh. Everyone's emergency except for yours.
That's right.
Where you've been copied, where somebody is covering their rear end with an email that you probably don't even need, and it breaks that concentration, right? Now look, is this the right flow? I don't know. But can you get your arms around the day with a review, with a plan, to where you're proactive and you're in control? right? What's your plan to coach people? What's your plan to attack the market? And set up an inner sanctum that I like to think of as a war room. Now this happens to be a bonus room in my home, which is isolated, insulated from the entire house. I don't know anybody's in the house, but I have everything I need here to operate away from the fray with no interruptions. And Bill, you texted me this morning. It took me 13 minutes to see that text because I have no ding, right? I have no ding on my phone. I apologize for the 13-minute delay, but I have no ding on my phone. Okay, but can you isolate yourself where you can, in fact, concentrate away from the fray? And we're talking about a plan. Let's talk about a plan. What would a plan look like? We're going to spend some time here. In fact, I saw this Bob Dylan quote. That's a heck of a guy to quote, isn't it? A guy that spent most of his life doing what? I'm not sure. But he said this: who is not busy being born is busy dying. And here's the point. I saw this analogy where being in business is a little bit like being tossed in a river. Now, the river is flowing, and if you're not paddling to keep up, you're going downstream. Make sense? If you're not at least keeping up, you're going downstream. Now, here's what's fascinating. In 2000, let's see, when was it? 2004, it's 14. Bill landed a Fortune 500 company with people in 23 states. Okay? Now, my only option here was to develop technology and serve people in 4 time zones in 23 states, right? To use this technology. Now, I have counterparts that have not, and they're practically out of business. Think about it. So, technology, friend or foe? I think it's a pretty good friend. Learn how to embrace it, right? But stuff happens with technology, doesn't it, Bill? We had a little hiccup this morning, but everybody knows that, right? So can you embrace technology? Because, you know, you didn't drive anywhere this morning, many of you, right? You're sitting in a home office. You just bought another hour a day, and it could be a quiet place where you can concentrate, right? And I love this expression, but it's a painful expression. Your business is performing exactly as you designed it to perform. See, in 1997, I left a Fortune 100 company, Trip. I left a Fortune 100 company, jumped off the deep end with no income and no clients, and moved to this house on Lake Murray, right? And good or bad, I bought the building. I hired the employees. I set all the practices and the procedures. Now think about it, Trip. If it's not going so well, whose fault is that? That's right. That's right. The business is a physical manifestation of us and what we do or don't do. So nothing like revenue. How do we begin to grow revenue? Not just revenue, but maybe profitable revenue. Because there's a difference between being a vendor and being a partner. And discounting is not the way to success. Okay? If you're better, by the way, if something is better, it's likely to cost more, right? No such thing as a free lunch. So let's talk about specific strategy that you can share with your people or do yourself as the owner of a business in order to grow revenue. In fact, let's use a planning tool that we practice even in good times. Let's suppose you take every possible account and put it in 4 different buckets. 4 different buckets. The first would be those accounts that you want to keep. You know the old adage about 80% of your business is probably involved with 4 big customers, right? 4 big customers. If you do nothing else, You better make sure that you're keeping those customers. A quick exercise, if you will. Would everybody take a piece of paper and write down the name of those accounts? 3, maybe 4. See if you can write them down. See if you can write those down for me. Your biggest, best, select accounts. Pay you on time, appreciate what you do. Got a few of those, right? Ironically, they're your most profitable. Okay. Once you get those written down, if you would you consider writing the name your biggest, toughest, meanest competitor right here? Right at the top. Who's your biggest, toughest, meanest competitor? At the top. Because here's the rule. Your best customer is somebody else's prospect. And is it plausible that they have a list that looks like that? I mean, if we do nothing else, we got to do what? Look, let's keep these accounts. Because you know the number one reason that employees leave you and that your clients or customers leave you, it's some combination of not feeling appreciated, taken for granted, not being involved, right? Number 2 is, who are those ideal accounts that we can attain? These are ideals. What's ideal for you in terms of geography, in terms of volume, in terms of SIC code? In fact, if Dun & Bradstreet called you and said, we're going to sell you a list, what exact criteria would you give them where it was ideal for you? These are the people that you serve best, that pay you on time, that appreciate what you do, that are a pleasure to work with. I mean, we don't need many of those to make a pretty good living, right? But who are those people? Because just a minute ago, we talked about, let's suppose we had a list like that, right? Suppose we had a list like that, the ones we want to attain. But who are those people? Who can introduce us to those people? Who can sing our praises? Who have you done really good work for, who's mutually connected on LinkedIn, that could make a phone call and get an introduction? Because you've earned it. Because you do good work. Okay? And these people can get you here. These people can get you there. Okay. The next is recapture. We've gotten a tremendous amount of success from making a list of those old accounts and making some calls. And it's stunning how many times the competitor has dropped the ball just because they're distracted, their head's in the clouds. They're not paying attention. They've moved some people around. The same person's not answering the phone when they call. And now the door is open. These people know you, right? Who knows why you lost the business? To the next least path of resistance, why don't you go back and see if you can recapture some of that business? But let's suppose you and yours made a list of each of these. Made a list, each one of these, and methodically begin to attack this. Right? What's the best strategy to get to these people? Where are they? Who can introduce us in a place like South Carolina where everybody's related? How many of you have noticed you go to a football game and you talk to somebody in 10 minutes, there's a connection? And then the last is expand. See, this is a great opportunity right here to expand, right? Where I talked to an account the other day, and I said, hey, George, you talked about hiring a salesperson. He said, yeah. And I said, you know, there are more people on the street right now for us to take a look at it. Listen, you said you got less going on. Make any sense at all we talk about that? He said, absolutely, right? But you got to understand what that is now, right? And by the way, what you don't want to do is sell, right? Listen, the deal that you had in the pipeline that you're pushing to close, oh boy, it doesn't feel right to them. They've already warned you that that's not appropriate. So how can we look at things differently? How can we break accounts up into these 4 different buckets, even if it's a small list? even if it just, suppose you had 5 to 10 in each category and started working on a plan. What's a strategy to re-engage, make sure that we know these people know we still love them? And is there somebody they could potentially refer us to? Because at the end of the day, they do appreciate the work we've done. And it's the right thing to do. How can we go after small accounts and recapture because a competitor is a deer in the headlights? And then what legitimate opportunities are there to expand? With opportunities that are present now, and I think part of that is more salespeople on the street to look at, if that's the area, right? But to plan. Okay. So here's an example of how another company took this care information. Show of hands, anybody's got salespeople or business development people? Would you raise your hand, Jeff? Okay. Nobody else? Wow. Okay. How many of you have to sell, like it or not, but you have to go sell yourselves? Okay, that's a little different cup of tea, isn't it? All right. But here are some real opportunities with key performance indicators, metrics in play, right? We're just a modest amount of activity around keeping those accounts, a modest amount of activity with some metrics in play to attain, some modest metrics around recapture, right? Getting that introduction, referral, modest activities for expanding. And can you build a plan around that? Okay, number 5, last but not least, is let's uncover and fix some pain. And you say, Bill, what is pain? I'd like to take you through a quick exercise. And Jeff, I hate to keep picking on you, but could I ask you a couple of questions?
Maybe.
Jeff, you know the last time I thought of you?
Oh boy.
I was down at the Austin Woodyard at Peak with one of the entrance points to the Palmetto Trail, and you were one of the primary endorsers, and your quote and your picture was on the sign of the Palmetto Trail. Good picture, by the way. But Jeff, if let's suppose that I'm a big account and I'm one of your salespeople, and they're saying, "Hey, listen, I got just a few minutes. Help me understand. Give me the top 3 reasons I ought to be working with you guys at Blackstone." What do you think they'd say?
Well, I guess we have, a depth of resources,
Have good resources, absolutely.
expertise in our field.
Excellent.
We have a good reputation in the market.
You bet. Now, Jeff, I know these things are true, but here's the question I want to ask. In fact, let's take a minute and assume that one of your salespeople, take a moment, he goes to his biggest competitor. What's he going to say now? Can you follow me here?
We've got the best resources. We've got expertise in our field, and we've got a good reputation.
I mean, you see my point. Do you think he's going to say, "Oh my gosh, resources, this place is a mess"?
Yeah.
Compared to Blackstone, this place is a mess. And expertise, oh my gosh, we got a bunch of newly graduated hot shots out of college, don't have any practical experience. Do you think they're saying, and we have, because of that, we've really bought some accounts. There's some online reviews I hope you won't see. We haven't gotten good scores on that.
Mm-hmm.
So people buy more because of pain, right? In fact, 4 questions for me, Jeff. And listen, you get a gold star at the end of this, okay? But what is it you sell? Help us understand. What do you sell?
Well, I'm thinking in this particular context, there are HVAC services to property managers.
Okay, so I get that, but what do you really sell?
Mm-hmm. Well, we solve problems for the property manager. We try to make their life easy.
So Jeff,
yeah.
What pains would a prospect or a client experience by not having the benefits of working with you or your company?
Sort of the lack of response, maybe sending the wrong guy over there to take care of the problem, not solving the problem, not following up, not communicating.
So what are the ultimate consequences if they don't fix those pains?
or they're going to move on to somebody else, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a little different,
Yeah.
is it not?
Yeah.
Because get the focus off of products and services. Look,
Mhm.
don't take it personally, but everybody has got products and services. And while, Jeff, I don't doubt for a minute that these things are true, it's a little bit like Charlie Brown talking to Lucy. You remember that noise that Charlie Brown would hear when Lucy was talking? It was wah, 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 wah. It's impossible to think that maybe a prospect is wondering, the last guy said something like that.
Mhm.
The last guy. Suppose we can turn things around and understand those true consequences in a way that those consequences could cost them money, couldn't they, Jeff? How much money could they lose because of those consequences? Big number, right?
Right.
Would that cost justify spending the right amount of money with you? Be the best money they ever spent, wouldn't it? You follow me here? So here's the challenge. If salespeople say it, it's not believable. And if we're not careful, it all sounds the same. Listen, I don't refute that it's true. I believe it's true. But they can't tell. They can't differentiate. So this whole idea, our buzzword here is pain, okay? In fact, steps for selling value today. You know, Bill used this word. Because look, I'll tell you what they're not in a position to do is buy stuff. I mean, if I ask any of you, do you want to buy something today? Your answer is going to be no. Is that fair? But you are looking for some value. It's just the problem is nobody can articulate that value. And it all sounds the same. And the minute we respond to an RFP, Jeff, our stuff sounds like their stuff. Our graphics are about the same. And now they get confused and they buy based on low price. Make sense? And now we're looking and sounding like a vendor. Don't you love that word? What does vendor imply? Okay. So, some questions to ask yourself. What is their pain? I'm going to walk you through 3 real-world analogies, but let me give you the steps first. What is their pain? How can you be the person that intimately understands real world that they can't refute it? They can't refute it and help them eliminate, dodge that pain. Number 2, how can you then share best practices that were proven? We've got some construction companies that we work with that have been able to say, we learned a few things from 2008, right? By the way, the minute you say that, what's the implication? We've been there, got the t-shirt. These were hard lessons to learn, but they were valuable lessons. Maybe they could help you. And they're true. Okay? But consider this flow. What is their pain? What is their pain? And can you articulate it the way they would, Jeff, in just a few words? Make sense? And now, can you and yours brainstorm and come up with a best practice, a viable best practice that they can tell because you've been there and you're referencing something like 2008, help them see that they're not a guinea pig, that you've got the experience. You know what you just did? You just illustrated the experience when you did that. Right? And it's nothing contrived, right? That's how you demonstrate expertise, that we've been there. We resolved that issue. Okay, now the next thing we're going to have to do, in fact, a lesson within a lesson. There are 3 ways that we can make a point. And it doesn't matter whether it's to a brand new prospect or your kids or your spouse. There's a good lesson, a good life lesson about what people will and won't hear. And it's the way that we phrase things. We can say things in first person, where we tend to use the word I. Okay, and we say, let me tell you what I would do. Now, if you say that to your kids, how well is that going to work? Have you noticed they don't listen to anything? Or your spouse. And you know, you think about, you're doing that with a prospect. Think about it. Your card says salesperson. Now, don't take it personally. But how much do you think they trust anybody who's sharing that advice? You follow me here? Now, we could say it in second person, where we tend to use the word you. Well, here's the challenge with that. We begin to sound like your mother-in-law, telling you what to do. Try telling your kids what to do and see how well that works. Now, listen, I love my mother-in-law. Lost her a few years ago. But my understanding is that not everyone on earth feels that way. Okay? Or we could say things in third person, which is said by other people. Other people, maybe your clients. Maybe clients like them in their space, very similar clients. Make sense? I mean, I really hate to admit this. I'm sitting in church sometime back, and I noticed myself fading a little bit. Trip, don't tell anybody I said this, okay? But I noticed myself get pulled back in because the preacher was telling a story, right? A story. And a few minutes later, I drifted away, and he pulled me right back in with another story. Let's suppose we could begin to share other people's experience where they can't shoot the messenger and speak through someone else. What sounds better? I think you should, or you tell me what you ought to do, or Jeff, we had a big customer in your space back in 2008 that told us that. Which is more believable? It doesn't have to be contrived, it can be true, but you understand their pain. Right? And you're prepared with the best practice that can help them fix it. So you tell a client experience story in third person. Notice we're not selling anything. We're demonstrating a way to provide value. Case study number 1. Have a commercial builder in the upstate landed a major roofing project at a university. The university called and said, we need to pull the plug. Funding problems. They were empathetic and said, boy, I understand, crazy times. Would you mind if I shared something with you? And what do you think they said? He said, we had some clients back in 2008. When they canceled a job, they got out of the queue. They were out of the workflow. The materials weren't ordered. When things finally settled out, everybody needed something yesterday. And now they were another 18 months behind. And they said, listen, is there any way you could order product and hold on to it for us? At least we can take care of that part. So we're ready to go when things turn. And you know what the university said? Sounds like a good idea. Let's do it. Right? Is it a manageable, smaller sale that really does serve them? Because Jeff, is it plausible to think that something like that could happen? You know, the minute they say they're going to delay, Jeff, what happens to some of those? Right? Before you know it, 18 months later, they're out re-quoting this opportunity. So you don't take them as seriously as you would if you got $2 million worth of product in your warehouse ready for that job. Okay? Another, we have a large firm that does placement, large scale HR types of opportunities for staffing up new locations and that sort of thing. Somebody called and said, we need to stop. We don't know when we're going to open that plant. And they said, no problem. Appreciate that. I understand where you are. Said, listen, can I make a suggestion? Got a number of people that have pointed out that there are more people on the street right now. We're not quite as busy. Maybe we look at the executive team and see if we can start the wheels moving there where we have those people in place. They said, wow, that sounds like a great idea. Let's do that. Okay? What are yours? What are your stopgap, legitimate areas to create value now where they can legitimately say, we can't proceed with the entire project? You follow? Number 1, put your thinking cap on. Put your thinking cap on. Look at things differently. By the way, if you look, act, taste, smell, feel like a competitor, which is perceived as a vendor, Don't be surprised when we're treated like vendors as well. Make sense? How can we look at things from their point of view? Ultimate consequences, which really cost them money. And now on a construction project, they're change ordering their way into profitability, Jeff, right? Where the cost wasn't X, it was X plus way too much money. Where they could have spent a little more up front to not jeopardize a relationship with a key owner, key developer, right? Because they delayed the job and came in and were blindsided by things that got them way off schedule, like ordering materials for a roof and having that in the queue with a legitimate way to provide value. Okay. What is their pain? Is there a best practice? And can you tell a story in third person where you say, Jeff, I'm reminded of another customer like you back in 2008 where, fill in the blank. Fill in the blank. Now it's not you. It's not the mother-in-law. It's the client experience. It's legitimate. It's real. And if they can act, they generally will. Okay, I love this graphic. The ethical selling model. It's unethical to sell someone they don't need. True? Equally true, it's unethical not to sell someone something they do need. By the way, I mean, Jeff, think about it. If I know in my heart of hearts they need to order product in order to stay on schedule and not get in a bad situation, by the way, when they get in that bad situation, guess who they're going to blame? So can you help them avoid that? By understanding their pain, having a relatable client experience, and tell it in third party. Okay, I'm open to questions, and I'm looking for a takeaway. Bill asked me to wrap up at 10:25, which means we have 11 minutes. Okay, I'd like to open it up to a few questions.
I got a question, Bill.
Yes, indeed.
First of all, thank you so much. This has been terrific. I've been just taking a bunch of notes here. But, you know, a lot of times people just say, I'm not a salesperson. I don't want to be a salesperson. What is that problem? What's going on there?
Well, if we looked at Trip, if I asked all of you to think up words, adjectives that describe the prototypical salesperson, what types of words would we use? Pushy, liar, lightning rod? You can't be that person. By the way, how many salespeople do you think are insightful enough to perform more like this? I think it's a matter of perception. Trip, ironically, the professionals that we've worked with, the architects, the CPAs, the attorneys, you know, they've been very uncomfortable with sales because they know they do not like salespeople and they don't like the way that salespeople perform. But once they understand a different point of view, and it is in fact systematic, they appreciate system, they'll employ it differently. But you can't blame them for having that belief, can you? Once again, the rule is if you look, act like a salesperson, you'll be treated like a vendor. It'll probably come down to price, and they won't respect you. And you'll get into the account under the wrong terms and conditions, which is typically a foot in the door strategy, which let's lowball the first one and maybe we'll get our foot in the door, which is never a good approach. Okay, Trip, did that help? Okay, let's get a couple of more lessons out. I'd like to pick on a couple of people here if I could. Ray Hill, good morning, Ray. Ray, could I get you to unmute? Is there a lesson, anything, a question you'd like to ask, or is there a takeaway you'd care to share?
No, all good stuff. I apologize. I was late getting on.
That's quite all right. Was there something that you could employ, something that made sense that you got from your notes?
The key part is something that kind of jumped out at me. We've got, you know, we're a commercial general contractor, so a lot of times, unfortunately, we'll do a project for somebody and just kind of forget about it and move on to the next one. So that was a good reminder to circle back around and use them as a reference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But first of all, help them understand the value, right? It could
Yeah.
sound like this. Ray, I'm thinking about that last project. Listen, all kidding aside, how'd that go? Did we help at all?
Mhm.
And if you did a good job, they're likely to say what? No,
Recommend it.
good. Really good. Really
Yeah.
good. Ray, who do you see who wants that kind of help? I mean, we're not a bid contractor. Who do you know that you sense needs that kind of help? Things got to get done right.
Mhm.
Right? Have them refer you because of the recognition and appreciation of value, as opposed to helping me.
Right.
Ray, I say to clients all the time, never refer me to help me. Don't refer me to help me. I don't need the help.
Mhm.
Refer me because this has been transformative in some way. You've gotten significant payoff, and you sense somebody else is out there doing something that doesn't make a lot of sense. Right? So how about Alex Lewis? Thank you very much, Ray. Let's go to Alex. Then maybe we'll go to Andrew. Alex, what about it? Is there a takeaway today? Something you could employ?
Yeah. Hey, Bill. Yeah, I really liked your care analogy there, especially the attain and kind of tap into those referral sources. So I'm a financial advisor, and we specifically help advise small business owners. And so we do have a great client base that we can kind of tap into and try to help attain those new referral sources. So I think that that's something that I definitely need to try to tap into. So yeah, try to go to the drawing board and come up with a good strategy for the care planning tool.
Alex, I'm all about ideals. 23 years of business, I want to work with ideals if I can, right? So I find an ideal, one that I'd like to attain on LinkedIn. I looked at our mutual connections and I saw the name of a great client. And I called him and said, hey, you know that guy? He said, are you kidding? We sit next to each other in Sunday school class. In an hour, I had an appointment, teed up, right? So listen, if you've earned that, right? If you've earned that, why wouldn't you take advantage of the value that you've created?
Yeah.
Make sense? Andrew, can I go to you next? And then Alan Cooper, could I go to you after that? What do you think, Andrew?
For me, kind of selling, through a story, getting rid of the first person, the eyes, and I think that just paints a better picture for people that they're not alone. That there's other people going through what they're going through, and this isn't the first time we've dealt with something like this. Uncovering, those pain points at the same time, just to, be more effective, and with your why and why they should work with you.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Andrew. Alan Cooper, could I weigh in with you just a minute, sir?
How are you doing, Bill?
I'm doing okay. Long time.
Been a long time. Yeah, I like the care component also, but one thing I really liked here too is we are faced with a barrage of emails all day long and lots of distractions, and I like the daily rhythm thing. I need to be better at having a plan for the day, and I think it would help me plan better. So that was a great takeaway from today. Thank you.
Alan, my all-time favorite business quote comes from Good to Great. It's in edition number 1, page 36. And I'm going to quote it.
Okay.
Create a stop doing list and unplug anything extraneous. Page 36, one of 3 precepts on the left-hand page, about a third of the way down. Create a stop doing list and unplug anything extraneous. And listen, I used to be on Facebook. Not anymore, right? It's a distraction for me, but I found a way to really manage these things, right? And there's this person called April behind the scenes, and her job is to take anything and everything off my plate and tell me where I'm getting in my own way. On a regular basis, I go to April and say, April, what do you see me doing that I have no business doing? And she's relieved to hear me ask that question because she can see that I'm getting in my own way. It's funny how we do that. Because in fact, where's my quote? Where's the quote that this one really stings? This is the one that got me to change right here. This is the one where I said, holy cow, McCrary, you got to do something, right? The business was a physical manifestation of me, all of those things, both good and bad. So let's see, who can we get? Jeff, I picked on you a lot today. Is there a takeaway? And then we'll go to Trip.
Hey, Bill, thank you. One of the things that's so hard in the service business, which I'm sure is not true in any other business that were the guys that are here on this call. So it's very specific to me, right? The status quo.
Oh, you bet.
It's sort of unhinging the current vendor or the current, provider.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just thinking about the third party stories and how that is powerful to at least create that hinge, as it were, or wedge, whatever you want to call it. And I don't know if you want to, maybe you could expand on that for a minute. I know you can.
Well, let me do this if I could. Competitor, and then there's ABC account, which is our ideal account. There's something called the anxiety chasm. That, like it or not, the competitor is the devil that ABC knows, right? And they know that change is problematic. I mean, if you ever changed credit cards or sell companies, have you noticed how annoying that is? Many times you recognize it really wasn't any better, right? So this is the devil that they know, and they don't know you. And you know what? Salespeople are saying things that they know aren't true because everybody else is saying that stuff. You follow me here? So what happens here is that there's legitimate fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Fear as to whether or not that change would make sense. Uncertainty about the transition, and doubt as to whether or not this is going to make them look good or bad, particularly if they're employees. And so you got to get past this scary place, this anxiety chasm. Not only had you better find pain, but it better be greater than the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, or they will stay where they are. I mean, it makes no sense, Jeff, to quote a job in the absence of pain. Make sense? Because they got a good relationship with the incumbent, and guess what they're going to do every time? Hey, Jeff himself came by the other day, gave me a great price. I need your help. We're trying to land this job. And they dangle that carrot. All right? So you gotta find a certain amount of pain. You got to differentiate in a way that you understand uniquely because you're looking at things differently. Follow? Okay. Trip disappeared on us. John Harris, would you like to finish up? Oh, it's 10:25. It's 10:25. John, you'll go last. How about that? Anything you'd care to share, John? Where did the light bulb go off today?
There we go.
You're a thinker, John. I know that. Yeah, where did the light bulb go off today?
I think actually you're on that screen right there, the ultimate consequences. So I really need to kind of spend more time thinking about what are our clients' ultimate consequences of using someone other than us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. These 4 questions can help you think through it pretty well. It's a great start. Okay, John, thank you very much. Folks, I really have enjoyed it. Bill, sorry I'm a minute late. Uh-oh, you're muted, Bill.
I should
There
know
we
that,
go.
right?
There we go.
Yeah. So, hey, Bill, thanks so much. This is very helpful. I came away with some good ideas myself. If people want to reach out to you, I mean, we're certainly going to make your information available to everybody on the call. I have all your information. There you go. Okay. You can do it yourself right there. So, Bill's not going to put you on a list or spam you or scam you or anything like that. But, if this is an area that if he said some things that resonated with you today and you're needing some extra training in a space like that, I would encourage you to reach out and have a discussion with him. A lot of people have, and a lot of people have been students of his and have gone on to have great success. So that's it. Bill, any last words?
No, thanks. Thanks for attending. Employ
Okay.
something that you learned today.
Yeah, there you go. Put it to work. So you guys have a great rest of the day. Tuesday, a great rest of the week. Enjoy. See you.
Thanks, Bill.